We've shifted down our forecast from as recently as June, where we were forecasting 6.4% growth, to now about 4.5% growth. And if you combine that with the fact that we think that higher income countries will actually shrink by 0.1%, then total global growth will only be about 1%. So this shows everybody's getting hit.
So what's the bank doing in the wake of the financial crisis? What further assistance is being offered?
Well, today I announced a portfolio of things. We will probably have, for our basic developing country IBRD lending, an increase from about $13.5 billion last year to perhaps about $36 billion this year. I mentioned that we can expand our total IBRD lending to about $100 billion over the next 3 years. Then for the poorest 78 countries, the IDA countries, we're very fortunate we had the contributions of about $42 billion last year, and we're going to try to front load that for the poorest countries. And then IFC has come up with some very innovative steps for trade finance, for viable infrastructure projects that can't get funding, for helping to recapitalize banks in poorer countries. And their contributions and that we hope to get to others may be about $30 billion over the next 3 years. If we combine that with trying to reach out for others for resources, our Energy for the Poor program, our prospects for trying to continue our work with the food crisis, our $1.2 billion rapid financing facility, we continue to be flexible and innovative in trying to see how we can meet country needs.
Why increase lending? Is that to meet country needs? Is that to meet existing demand?
In this environment, a lot of developing countries, including some of the middle income ones, are finding it very expensive to be able to get funding. And what's most important is, I think we're all trying to learn some of the lessons from the 90s financial crisis. And we want to make sure that developing countries that have had well-run economies don't have to cut back some of the basic social spending, or if they want to keep with the infrastructure investment so that they have a platform of growth. And in some of those cases, a country may only be running a modest budget deficit, but it just isn't sure whether it can get external financing. So with some we can make loans, with some we have products like the deferred drawdown option that assure them they can get the money if need be. Then the poorest countries have a different set of problems, and then the IFC, of course, is trying to provide some of these needs like trade finance, which has just fallen off dramatically.
The G20 is meeting this weekend. What do you hope comes out of that meeting?
Well, first and foremost, there needs to be a focus on the poorest and most vulnerable countries, because they're not really represented by any of the G20 countries. And so that would be, in particular, the need for countries to not only maintain their aid pledges, but to increase them. ODA, the Overseas Development Assistance, is about $100 billion. Not insignificant, but a drop in the bucket compared to some of the other financial support. Second, we need to continue to emphasize cooperative, coordinated, flexible, fast action, whether on monetary policy, keep things liquid, or fiscal policy, or the work on financial supervision, or trade, or other topics. Third, I think one needs to start to put in the foundation stones for a new multilateralism. And I would argue this shouldn't be the types of old Bretton Woods system of the mid-20th century. It needs to be more of a network model. And that means it needs to be able to draw on the expertise of existing institutions, whether UN, World Bank, IMF, regional development banks, private sector, and be able to draw them together to deal with the complexities of interdependence, whether it be energy, environment, finance, trade, or a host of other issues. And I think that this meeting, while short, can start to take steps in that direction.